my first thought on this game, first thing that I wrote down when I was doing my notes ahead of time, Clemson still hasn't played anybody. This is their first real test. Clemson is not in a situation where we should just automatically assume they're ranked highly, they're going to come out and they're going to smack Wake Forest. They're still going through a lot of the growing pains and headaches that they've been dealing with since Trevor Lawrence left. They have not fully recovered, and we're still seeing that so far this season. Now, they look like they're making progress and they're taking steps forward. They now have to face a strong Wake Forest program that has their starting quarterback back in Sam Hartman. I understand that Wake Forest played a very tight game against Liberty, and Liberty sucks this year. Liberty is not good this season for us to be considering that to be a potential realistic upset. They don't have Malik Willis. They don't have anybody on that roster. That is a mishap on Wake Forest's part to barely win that game. But where I give credit to this team, to this Wake Forest team, is that Sam Hartman is coming back from a serious medical issue. He is coming back from a serious hardship to have to miss part of training camp. I believe it was 1 game or 2 games so far. It's going to take time for him to get back into the rhythm that we saw he was capable of playing at last season. There's a lot of good athletes on this team. I love A.T. Perry as a draft prospect, who's one of their star receivers, which actually is their star receiver. They, if they get into a rhythm, are going to be a really tough team to beat in the ACC. And I think that right now, they are still a top 4 team in the ACC. So if Sam Hartman, on that note, if Sam Hartman in this game bounces back after a weak performance against Liberty, gets back more into stride, doesn't turn the ball over the way that he did against Liberty, that is going to keep them in this ballgame. That is going to put them in a position to win. However, I still lean Clemson. Clemson is going to win this football game. And the reason why I feel that Clemson is starting to recover is that they looked crappy against Georgia Tech, who we know is not a very good team. But they have slowly taken steps forward in progression. Their offense is starting to look better and better. Understandably, they've only beaten Furman and LA Tech since they played Georgia Tech. But as this team plays more football games, their defense gets more comfortable. They're going to be playing at that top 10 caliber. I don't see this being their first loss. It is going to come later on in the season, whether that is against NC State, who also looks weak, whether it is against Miami. Their first loss is not going to happen this week. They're not going to lose to Wake Forest. I still have faith in DJ Uiagalelei. We have to consider, and I know people joke that the offense still looks the same despite the turnover at offensive coordinator. It is a difficult process to transition from one offensive coordinator to another if you're a starting quarterback. It takes time to learn that offense and get comfortable. And while it might not be that different from last season, it's still a process. So for me, Clemson is going to win this football game. This is going to be one of those games where it's going to set off a trajectory for them to keep improving and improving. Their schedule, just looking at it, is pretty weak after they play NC State. I still think that NC State is one of the most overrated teams in the country. For them to be ranked 12 is ridiculous. I'm likely, when we talk about that game next week, am going to be in favor of Clemson again. But they have a very weak stretch of games until they play Miami and then South Carolina. And as we saw, South Carolina is a pretty soft team.